All right. So this is another special entry. I have an interview, a really good one, that I am excited to share. And it's about a movie that you probably know nothing about at this point. But hopefully, after watching this, you will know a little bit more about it than you did going in. And the film is called Charlie Tango. Let's talk about it. So, this is going to be less a review, and it'll be more like what you saw with the Borderlands conversation I had with the maestro, where I'll give short thoughts, and then I will share the interview with you. So this is a movie that is a thriller, and it actually it's quite timely that this conversation comes up now because as I understand it, there's a premiere in Canada happening this week, coming up. I think in Quebec, and following that, there might be at least one other premiere. But for our purposes, for those of us who can't be in Canada and see it in theaters, it will be on demand September 3rd. So just if you're curious about this after you've watched this video or listened to this interview, you yeah, keep an eye in ear out on your on demand applications to check this movie out. So, rapid fire thoughts. This was a unique thriller. I hadn't seen anything like it. I hadn't seen a story like this before, and I'll admit, initially, the 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 cadence and the rhythm of the film felt it was hard for me to get my bearings in terms of the rhythm, and I think some of it had to do with what the acting felt like initially. It was a little hard to get into the flow of the performances. But having said that, by the end of the movie, that was not an issue, and you'll see actually when you take a look at this interview with the wonderful French Canadian filmmaker Simon Boisvert. We had a great conversation about the just the inner workings of the film and what made it work and the writing process. And I think that I had an appreciation for the movie before I had spoken to him, and after I'd spoken to him, there was a level of depth that was added to my experience. And then it's just because it's not often that you get to talk to the creator of of work, of any art. So when you do, hopefully you come away with another layer of understanding and appreciation for the work. And that's what happened to me. My quick thoughts were I, it was a thrill ride. It was a ride, and it has lots of things in it that you wouldn't expect, and it's again ultimately it's a story that you're not familiar with, in the sense that the way it's executed. You know thrillers, you've seen thrillers, but you haven't seen one quite like this, and I'm excited to share the conversation with you, uh, those of you who are watching, to myself and Simon Boisvert. It was very insightful, and I hope you get the same excitement and just interest even about the project and even about him that I got. I guess there's nothing else to say except here's the conversation with Mr. Simon Boisvert on his new film, forthcoming film, Charlie Tango. Take a look.
Cool.
So Simon, so okay, so Charlie Tango. I have to tell you, so uh, this is wow, it was I was a surprising film that I watched. I enjoyed it. I think so. I want to. So I'm trying to get my my way into to asking you the questions about this movie was, I think that one of the more things I thought, as I'm a writer as well, so what, as a writer myself, what I think I'm always fascinated with story, like as a way into like the filmmaking process. And I'm curious for you, in this particular film, what was your way into the storytelling? What was the genesis for this particular story for this film? Like, what was the germ that gave you the
Yeah,
idea?
I'll tell you what it is. Yeah, because about 15, 20 years ago, I was making, small films about relationships because, when you work with low budgets, it's basically all going to be talky conversations. And then at some point, it was shown in a couple of theaters in Montreal, and some acquaintances went to see it, and they didn't really enjoy it. And I said, well, you guys rent DVDs, back in the day
Yeah, but DVDs
on
were.
Saturday night. What do you guys like? And they said, well, we like thrillers. So I
Oh,
said, okay, if I ever have an idea about a thriller, let's do it one day.
yeah,
So at some point in the early 2010s, that's about 12, 13 years ago,
sure,
I was
sure.
interested in Ponzi schemes because there's a couple of things that happen in my province in Quebec where some guy was caught with a Ponzi scheme. He was a guy who was selling investments to older widows.
Mm.
He would meet with them at the funeral home and he would offer his condolences and say, well, I know so and so who knows you. What are you going to do with the money? And sometimes sums varied between 200,000 and $1 million.
Wow.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah, pretty
so
substantial.
you add it up and you find 50 clients, well, that's close to $50 million. So what happened is that he got caught because there was the big market crash in 2008, I think, and
2008.
everyone wanted to pull their money out. And that's usually how you get caught with a Ponzi scheme. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, is there enough to make a movie? It's a classic scheme. So I said, I have to find another story that can intertwine with it.
Mhm.
So I had started a script about an air traffic controller, a female air traffic controller, like the one in the film, who was a little bit younger, a tad younger, maybe late 30s. And what happened is it was the same circumstances of the plane crash, but she was a single mother. And she was very shaken up by the whole thing, and she started playing poker with bad guys
Mm.
on a website, these poker sites and
Yeah,
everything. And
yeah,
then she got to meet some of them. Because she was a good poker player, but she lost a lot of money. And then, in order to basically make ends meet and pay back the debt, she became a prostitute.
Mhm. Wow.
And she was lying to her daughter as to why she was leaving every night and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, okay, I had some people read it and they said, well, it's a little bit too soap opera-ish, a little bit too melodramatic. And I said, okay, what am I going to do? And then at some point I had a flash a few years ago and I said, let's combine both scripts.
Yeah.
But the idea was to combine both scripts. How do you make it work so that two separate storylines can, at some point, the audience can make a connection? And
Right.
obviously, it's in the last scene that you make the real connection.
Right. Yeah.
But even at the beginning, the idea was to put her in a situation of vulnerability. And then because of the vulnerability, then she loses her job. She sort of loses her mind a little bit, and she's very stubborn. She doesn't want to admit that there's a problem. No, everything's gonna be fine. But then she works for this guy, and then I said, okay, let's make it that she catches him. Then I had to think, how do we nail the guy?
Yeah.
And I like these ideas because in Canada, and I think in the States it's illegal, they have an operation called Mr. Big in Canada.
Ah,
And Mr. Big is basically the police officer uh, uh, basically becoming quote unquote friends with a suspect.
yeah.
And then after weeks and weeks and weeks, they make them talk.
Yeah. That's a
So I kind of combined all
yeah.
three. And I'm thinking, okay, I think this is going to work. And around 2021, late 2021, I realized, that the pandemic was kind of winding down because there were so many restrictions for a year and a half.
Yes.
I said, okay, I'm going to shoot this film in 2023. So I had about a year to prepare and cast the actors. And because I like doing this in advance,
Yes.
the main actors, they got the script 1 year in advance.
Wow. Yeah.
So it gave them the opportunity to give me feedback, to change a few words here and there so that they were comfortable. And then we started the real pre-production early 2023. We shot the movie over 20 days in March 2023. And it was completed, I would say, around the month of October last year.
Last year. Oh, wow.
Then it was the idea of putting it into festivals and then trying to have a theatrical release, at least locally in Canada.
Sure.
I have two movie theaters that are going to show it starting next week on the 23rd. One is in Montreal, my hometown, and one is in Toronto. And in the meantime, I got the distribution contract for US and Canada for the platforms. It'll be out September 3rd.
Wow. And is this for all all major platforms, like main ones, or just are there smaller ones?
It's all VOD. It's all VOD.
VOD,
so
okay.
if you look for it on Netflix, you're not going to find it. But if you still subscribe to cable, and some people do,
yes.
especially the older crowd, you can find it on any cable distributor like Comcast, Cox, DirecTV, AT&T, and those who want to watch it online, it's obviously going to be on Apple TV, what used to be called iTunes.
Yes.
It's already up for pre-sale on iTunes, but if people want to wait until September 3rd, then they can just rent it. And it's also going to be on Google Play, YouTube TV, Vimeo, all the platforms where you can, it's VOD, video on demand, you just rent it out. I don't know how much it's going to be, maybe $6.99 or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's it. Now, then is it going to be on a streaming platform like Netflix and everything, or Disney? Look, I don't know, but maybe at some point Amazon Prime.
Sure. Okay. Right.
Maybe Amazon Prime at some point they could offer it to subscribers. So we'll see. But look, it's going to be easy to find a film. For those who want to watch it, it's going to be in US and Canada, especially in the US. Sure. It's going to be very easy to find it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I wanted to go back to one thing you mentioned about Kim and where you put her as a character, like having her in a position of vulnerability at the start of the story, and then having her, she loses her way a little bit and then she ends up working with Charlie. How intentional? So one thing about that thread of thinking that came up for me was this notion of, as an air traffic control person, your job is to guide. You're guiding pilots on the right flight plan or whatever to go to the airport, wherever it is. So it's something about how there's a miscommunication there, and there's like if the air traffic control person is lost, losing their way in terms of the guiding, and how Kim character-wise in terms of where her journey is, she ends up losing her way and then finding some other kind of way that ends up not being the best option for her. But how intentional were the two ideas, like the idea of being an air traffic control person whose job is to guide, and herself as a character having lost whatever her moral guide was to do what was right, and then end up doing something that was questionable? Was that intentional at all, or what was the thinking around that?
No. No, and that's pretty interesting what you're saying, because it reminds me of when I was in high school and college, and we would read books, and then we would read books about reviews about the book, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Notes about the book. And very often the person analyzing the book thought of things that the author probably didn't even think of. And that's exactly what's happening here. I never saw the connection, except that there's one moment in the film where her husband mentions, well, you guys are a traffic controller. If this operation derails, what are you guys going to do? Guide them to a safe landing? So maybe that's the only connection.
Right. That makes, but I mean,
yeah,
that connection. I think I buy that, because that was funny. I caught that joke as, that's that's funny that he would say that to her. Like that's as an air traffic control person, like that's the issue around that. The other thing I wanted to know about, like the process, how the writing process. So like, how easy difficult was once you actually got rolling with the actual story, what you knew what you were telling. Was it a quick turnaround in terms of like how quick it was to put the story together? Was it just, did it take, was sometimes they can take a long time. The process can be a while to sort of hash it out. And then having people read the different iterations of it, what was that like for you in the
Yeah. Well, the air traffic control script, the original one had been written 15 years ago,
Okay.
in 2009, 2010. And then I just put it aside. Then the idea of the Ponzi scheme, I only had the idea of the Ponzi scheme. I had never written anything. It was just there in my head. Now, what happened is over the years, I could put it away for like 2-3 years, the air traffic control script. And then at some point I realized, okay, this is not going to work. So the idea of adding the Ponzi scheme to it probably happened, I would say, around the fall of 2021.
Oh,
If we start at the fall 2021, I put together a first draft, and then I worked on it probably until the summer of 2022, which is when the actors got a pretty a version that was pretty close to the final version, I would say. And then it was just a matter of tweaking things. So the actual process probably took 6 to 9 months.
right.
But like I said, I already had a script about the air traffic control. So it took about 6 to 9 months. And then what happened is the script was 120 pages long. And as you know, it's a page a minute, basically.
Right.
That's the standard. And the movie, with credits at the end, only lasts 99 minutes. So we shot everything, but we cut 20 to 25 minutes in the editing room. Yeah. And it's a lot of money that you sort of waste, quote unquote.
Sure. Right.
But it's for the good of the film, because what I did when I first put it together, well, the editor put it together, I had a 2-hour version. And I showed it to some collaborators who had been working on the set. So they were kind of close to they were maybe a little bit too close to the project. They were not like audience members, but still. And I could tell that there were times where they were a little bored. So I said, okay, I know I have a good story. It's just not tight enough. So basically what I deleted was mostly, there could be spoilers here, but let's just say that it was, I'm just going to be general here.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
It would be scenes between Jeff and Kim trying to work it out.
Sure.
And so I probably removed 10 to 15 minutes of this. And I simplified it. And then I went line by line in the film, line by line, watching the first cut or the second cut, I would say, after removing some scenes.
Sure. Yeah.
I said, okay, every line that doesn't make the story move forward will be deleted if technically possible.
Yeah.
I was able to delete probably 80-90% of those lines. And like at some point, there's a time where Charlie is trying to convince the couple to invest with him.
Yes.
That scene was 2.5 minutes long. I brought it down to 1.5 minutes. So, why? Because line by line, I would say, okay, well, he just said that already. Okay, Jeff is suspicious. Okay, we get it. Yeah. We don't need 20 questions.
Right.
But I think that's a normal process. I mean, any filmmaker would tell you that it's normal to shoot more than what you show on the screen. And some movies, I would say, even big Hollywood productions, would gain in becoming tighter, I would say.
Yeah. Yes.
Of course, I used to shoot films where, I had 80 minutes of, my first cut was 80 minutes long.
Yeah.
Oh my God, although there's 10 or 15 minutes you don't like,
right.
What are you going to do? You can't have a feature that's 65 minutes long. So this time I said, okay, I'm going to have a 120-page script. And then I said to myself, Well, maybe I could have cut before we shot it.
Ah,
Well, you know what? A lot of people went through the script and they didn't see the need.
mhm.
I didn't see the need. It's when you see the first cut that you see the need to cut it. So it's too bad. I could have saved like 2-3 days, you know,
Yeah.
of shooting, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the final product. And there was one song that you hear in the credits at the end of the film. I had shot a concert scene of this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's $50,000 wasted.
Well, okay. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. That's
I only played the song at the end in the end credits because it didn't work because I changed the ending.
Yeah. So now it's like, right. Yeah. You have
The ending or the original ending. Well, I had two possible endings, and if there were still DVDs being made today, I would have an alternate ending to this film,
Yeah. Oh,
and that would include the song being played in concert.
in concert. Yeah. Oh, I would love that if that existed.
But
Really cool.
that's the thing. So look, that's what it is. Even the first song, you know, we start with Judas Priest
Yeah.
Breaking the Law, which is a well-known song by fans of heavy metal. And we got the rights to the song. And we just did a cover of it because it's obvious that Kim is singing. So
Yeah. So she's got
yeah. So obviously we're not going to play the real Judas Priest song. So obviously it's a little bit cheaper, but also it fit the storyline. It wasn't background music. It was really to show that she's a rocker. And then we discovered that she's an air traffic controller, and that gig is just for fun. It's, you know, she's in a cover band, which I think is cool for a 51-year-old woman to be in a cover band singing hard rock.
Yeah, it really is. That was one that surprised. I was like, oh, okay, this is okay. It puts you in a different mindset because you don't expect someone at that stage in life to be, be living a space where that's a part of, like, there's a kind of freedom in that, to be that age. It's like, I'm just going to do this and like and just have a good time. And she's, it's like, oh, there's something really interesting about a character like that. So it's like, oh, that's
because it goes against the stereotypes, because also most air traffic controllers are men still. Not as much as maybe 30 years ago, but still. And so that's so I didn't want to make a social issues out of this. I'm not that type of guy, but I like to be inclusive, but in a more subtle way.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
And not hammering it home. Look, this is a woman doing air traffic. No, she just is.
She's just there doing it. Right.
Yeah. And that's it. And she plays poker and she likes hard rock. So to me, I thought it was cool. And the actress, loved the part, because it's not often that a 50-year-old actress will get offered that type of part, because most of them will tell me that now they play the auntie, they're starting to play grannies, and they're very wise, and no, this girl, this part could have been played by a 25-year-old, really.
And that's actually, I think that's one of the things that's genius about the character. It is that because you would expect, like, you could have had the same story with a younger actor, right, in that role, and it's like, okay, you don't think anything of it, but there's something that's more like real, like, as humans are humans, so no matter what age, they're gonna, sometimes they're not gonna be super perfect all the time, even in your 50s, and you're still, because you're still human, you're still we have we're fallible, and I think there's something fresh about that, and it feels actually really electric and alive to have someone in their 50s, living the life that Kim is living and on the journey that she's on.
Because filmmakers have a tendency to think, because obviously when you make a movie, you need a story, so you need some kind of conflict at some point. And I think filmmakers think that people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, oh, they're wise now, they're not going to make stupidities. Okay, you probably don't make as many stupidities at age 58 than at age 18, that's for sure. But still, you still make bad moves, bad choices in life. I'm 58 years old, and I hear stories, people my age, they still make bad moves. And I said, well, why not show it and just always, or what Hollywood does, they will take these actresses in their 70s now, like Jane Fonda and everything, and Diane Keaton, and they're just gonna make it goofy. So if you're an older person doing silly things where you're just goofy, can't you just be an older person going through life and still going through things, normal things? and not just be a caricature of yourself.
Yep.
Look, I have nothing against these movies. You need everything. You know, it's entertainment. It's pure entertainment. I like it, but I just want to make something more realistic and something that is not shown very often, which is people in their 50s having a life.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
With the good and bad that goes with it.
Yep. That's what's there. And I think I think it comes across clearly too. And it's like, oh, it's just because it becomes a drawing because most modern audience is not used to that. So when you see stuff like that, you just go, oh, like I saw Borderlands recently, and there's a lot of talk about Kate Blanchett, in her 50s playing an action, but there's something unique about that. Like this, there's something. Why can't someone be at
Why?
a different age and not do that? You see it for men all the time. There's men who are 50s and 60s continuing to do action films, and it's something. It's like, oh, it's why is that she could just be another person who happens to be in her 50s who's living this particular life. And I think that's something similar is what I found here with Kim.
And I have to say, when I went to the Myrtle Beach Film Festival, the audience was, I would say, most of the audience was a little bit older, 50 plus.
Sure.
But there were young people at 19, 20, 21, and they enjoyed the film. And I asked them, because when I was talking to them, it was a Q&A, but it was mostly, I got questions, but I also had questions for the audience. First of all, to see if the script worked, if there were things that they didn't understand that was not clear because not well shown or well explained. Everything will look fine. And then I asked, well, the younger people here, what did you think? And what did it bother you that most of the characters are in their 50s? And they said, we didn't even notice it. We're just following the story. We don't care if the air traffic controller is 30 or 50.
Yeah.
And I could tell during the film that they were, they were watching. They weren't just playing with their phone or anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So
it's a great story. The story is solid enough too, to where it's like, if you have you knew the story was there. So it's like, it's there, and it's like, this is what's going to be. And it definitely, it works. I think the next thing I wanted to ask you, Simon, about casting. We're talking about I think David LaHaye he's such a fantastic as Charlie. Like he feels very alive and very dynamic.
Yeah.
It's easily one of the more dynamic aspects of the movie. And I wanted to ask about what was the casting process like? Was it difficult to secure the leads, and how was that? Was it easy for them to be like, oh, I like this, I'm on board, or did you have to do a little bit of finessing to make that?
No, well, it was kind of everyone was every case was different. Let's call it.
Sure.
The lead actor playing Charlie, he's a well-known actor in Quebec. He's won awards. He mostly acts in French, but he also lived in Los Angeles a little bit. That's why he has a slight accent when he speaks English.
Yeah.
And we didn't hide it because his family name is French. When it's mentioned, the film is family name in French. So we didn't make him like some sort of American. No, he is French Canadian. And basically, I had known the guy personally for many, many years.
Yeah.
And we had always said, okay, let's do something together at some point. So when I sent him the script, the day after, he said yes.
Yeah, right.
So that was perfect.
Yeah.
Then the lead actress, she used to be on the series Degrassi.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. She was very, very popular in the 80s, early 90s. And then she came back with the Next Generation in the early 2000s. And then she got married and she had kids and she stopped acting for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is, for this part, I called a casting agent in Toronto because I want to cast a wider net than just looking at Montreal actors, because most actors in Montreal are francophones. So there are English productions. There are actors in Montreal who will act very often in Hollywood productions when they are shooting in Montreal, because they shoot a lot of stuff in Montreal. Sure. But I want to cast a wider net. So what happened is I said, okay, I asked the casting agent, that's the audition sides, the script. Yeah. And I want them to play the scene where the scene in the car where Jeff confronts Kim. when she comes out of the hotel.
Yeah.
I had 49 actresses
Wow.
who auditioned for this part, and some of them very well known in Canada.
Mhm.
So that's when I saw that, okay, there's something with this script, because, agents, they go through scripts first and everything,
Yeah.
and they're not just going to send actors, and if they don't feel that there's potential. And Stacy, I was surprised when I saw her audition tape,
Yeah.
because I thought she had retired.
Right. Yeah.
I said, my God, she really nailed it. And then I did a callback with the best of the bunch. And the callback was very hard because it was the air traffic control scene.
Oh, yeah.
And these actresses had no clue about vocabulary, the jargon, the
Yeah.
intonations or anything. And I just said, do your best.
Right.
Okay, you'll be directed on the set. Do your best. So Stacy nailed it again. I offered her the part. She read the script, and her husband is also in the film. He plays the guy at the end,
Oh,
in the big mansion,
yeah.
sitting
Wow.
in the chair.
That's
And yeah, and the rest of the cast, like Jeff, I had worked with him before. He's a local actor,
sure.
and I had worked with him before. And the other ones, I called agents, I had auditions, and I had also worked with Diana Lewis, who played Tanya.
Yeah.
I had worked with her before, and she actually shaved her head for the part.
Yeah. Oh, I was wondering about that. I was like, oh, did she actually?
Yeah, she did shave her head for the part, and
Committed
she did gain a lot of weight for the
for
part,
the part. Wow.
which she has lost. We have a premiere on Monday night in Montreal.
Oh, really? Oh,
I told her, I go, cast and crew will not recognize you.
then I could. She really committed. Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
She is a committed
yeah.
actress.
She was really. It was.
And so that was the casting process, if that answers your
Yeah,
question.
no, absolutely. No, I was just so curious. I was like, wow, everybody's so you're good. It's so good. Like, I wonder how easy or difficult it is generally just to to put that together. It's there's a lot of puzzle pieces. People are coming from different places and different positions at different points in life at the time they get the script, and so there's no guarantee whether or not they might say yes to you don't know. So it's
Oh, you don't know. So you have to have backup plans. But usually, if you audition 49 women, you know that it's going to be fine. You're going to find that person.
right. Yeah.
Especially when they're being sent by top agents. So so that was that was the idea behind the casting. There's one person who dropped out a month before we started shooting, because that person was concerned about the COVID measures.
Right.
She was concerned that we were not going to be monitoring this enough. There were no air exchangers and stuff like that. And I think she had COVID and she was worried. So I said, okay, no problem. These things happen,
Sure. Yeah.
because it was it was at the tail end. There
Oh,
was still, because we had COVID on the set, obviously,
yeah.
but they were allowed to work as long as they wore a mask. But a few months before, they would not have been allowed on the set.
Yeah. Wow. That's it.
So that was a little bit problematic. We're at the tail end of COVID, but we managed, and people were not as worried as they were maybe 3-4 years ago.
Sure.
So it was okay. Everything went very smoothly. We didn't have any big issues. And because every time you start shooting a film, Murphy's Law applies usually.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
So when everything is in the can at the end and it's been downloaded on several computers,
Right.
all the patches have been downloaded, you're like, phew.
Right. Then you can
Then you
reach.
can start relaxing. You take your time to finish the film. But during the shoot, you're always thinking, okay, today what's going to happen? Because a few years ago, I shot something. One key scene was deleted by mistake by the data wrangler.
Oh, wow.
And we had to go back out of town, call back the actors, cost $10,000. I mean, it's that's why not that many people make films.
Yeah.
Because if it were that easy and cheap and everything, I think 1 million people would make a film.
Right.
A lot of people want to make films. So, but I'm very happy. I don't know if I'm going to recoup the investment, but I mean, I'm just hoping that people see it as much as possible.
Yeah, no, oh, so I would see that. I'm glad you mentioned that too. This is a later question I had to ask you, but I feel like this is a good segue to this because I'm curious. Like once you have an idea of like what you like before you're making movies, you look, oh, I want to make this, I want to make movies, and then once you start making them, you start seeing what it takes to make a film and how challenging it can be. So I'm curious, like, so what was it, first of all, that what was the moment that made you want to be a filmmaker? Or what was the
Oh,
movie that hit you that was like, yeah, I want to do this? And then once you learned it, like what
yeah.
kept you doing it?
Yeah. How are we going to do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened is I always had the idea when I was a kid. I always want to be in the entertainment business, but I didn't know how.
Mm.
So I was supposed to take guitar lessons at some point, but things happened. I didn't do it. And then I auditioned for commercials when I was 16 or 17 through someone my mom knew, but it didn't really pan out. I wasn't a great actor or I wasn't a musician. So I said, okay, well, let's put the lid on this. And then when I was in the early 90s, when I was like in my early 20s, I had a girlfriend who was at university, and she said, well, I could get the equipment for free and we could shoot something.
Mhm. Wow.
But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to write a script. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything. So that, that went south. And then in 1999, I was 33 years old, and a friend of mine was her sister was doing a short film for a college course,
Mhm.
and I said, "Hey, I'll be an actor in your short film." It was a 5-minute short film, and she said, "Okay, cool." And then she came back to me and she said, well, my partners, they want to audition people. They don't just want to take you like this just because I know you. I said, okay, I'll audition. I didn't get it.
Oh, wow.
I was
Okay.
furious.
Of
I was
course. You're
insulted.
ready to go. Yeah.
I was going nuts. And that was very immature on my part. I realized this, but I didn't know the business. So I said, okay, you don't want me. I'm going to write myself a script. I'm going to give myself the lead role and I'm going to pay for it.
Wow. Yeah.
So I wrote a script, a little bit bric-a-brac, but I wrote a script. I went to see a college professor out of the blue, and I said, "Look, I have $35,000. Even in 2000, that was very little money to shoot
Right.
something." I said, "I have $35,000. I have a 75-page script. Can you help me?" And he said, "No," but he goes, "I know a guy who shoots music videos, and he's used to working with low budget."
Mm-hmm.
And call him up. So I called the guy. He reads my script. He finds it totally stupid, but he said, "Okay, you want to shoot your film? We'll do it."
Oh, well.
And he did it. And the crew was making fun of me. I was not a good actor, and it was like, oh boy. Eh, I didn't realize it at first, but I said, "What the heck did I get into?"
Right. What the heck?
But I
Yeah.
completed the film. It was shot in 9 days.
Right.
And believe it or not, I got VHS distribution for it.
Oh, wow. Really? Wow.
So it was shown, it was in video stores throughout the province of Quebec. I recouped a little bit of that 35,000, maybe 15,000,
Sure. Yeah.
and I was happy. And I said, okay, let's continue. But then, I said, okay, maybe I'm not a good actor. Maybe I should get help writing my scripts and everything. But it took me a long time to realize it. So I kept making these ultra low budget films, which had a good premise, but it always lacked something. Obviously, if you work with $40,000, $50,000, it's always going to lack something.
Right.
Unless you're very, very creative, and you do like Rodriguez, shot a movie
Yeah.
with
Oh, yeah.
6,000,
Yeah.
or you do the Blair Witch Project, But look, I was not, I didn't have a great idea. So all I did was these talkie movies with couples breaking up and
Right.
getting back together and breaking up and getting back together. So fast forward many, many years, at some point in 2008, I did a movie with a little bit more budget. It played in theaters. It was okay. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was not, it was fine. It played on pay-per-view television here in Canada. I recouped my investment, but then I said, okay, now let's calm down.
Mhm.
on this filmmaking thing. After 8, 9 years, I was tired. And I said, I'm not going anywhere with this really. So let's wait until, and I had been told by people, I want a thriller, I want a thriller. So I said, if I have a good idea, if not, my filmmaking endeavors are over. But then I got the idea and I was able to save up money also over the years. So, you know, I wore the same running shoes for 7 years. I had the same pair of jeans for 5 years, basically not really going out. I didn't have kids, which really, really helped, you know, because kids are expensive and you can't just waste your money on films if you have children. I mean, that would be irresponsible.
Sure.
But you know, I didn't have kids, I didn't have any siblings. So I said, okay, who am I going to give my money to? So then I said, okay, let's save it up and let's try and make something that is worth watching. And I think I did. I think.
Wow, that's no, I think that no, I think you did too. Like so now at this stage in your filmmaking journey, so what keeps you doing it? What is it that is it the
I like storytelling and also the fact that I wanted to make a film that people would want to see. Yeah. And when I was in Myrtle Beach and I saw the audience, I mean, very quiet during the film and just watching and listening because, you know, if you blink, you might miss a couple of key elements. Yeah. So I suggest to people, you know, if they want to get a drink or popcorn, press pause, you know, on your on your remote control or your mouse. So so I said, okay, that's what kept me going. I want to make something. We have a premiere on Monday night. There's going to be some local stars who will attend, and I'm curious to see their reaction. But now it's like, it's as if now I had made it locally in the sense that I sent this movie and I'm being respected by the people who watch it. And that was my goal. Yeah. That was my goal because a lot of people told me, well, look, I know you have low budgets, but you can't use this as an excuse for your entire life. Okay, I know you can't really make a film with 50 grand, but please, either you stop making it or you stop complaining.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's
So I said, okay, well, let's try and raise a little bit more money and see what happens. So obviously I don't have millions, but the movie kind of, I think it looks, you know, it's worth showing theatrically. That's since it will be. And I think, although it's not a Hollywood production, I think it's, you know, the production value is pretty decent.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm glad you mentioned. So talk about, so the production value is one of the things that that struck me about particularly there's a sequence between Kim and Charlie, and Kim has just met Tanya. So following that sequence, they're walking, and it's like it's a rainy day, it's overcast, and they're walking under the umbrella talking. And then there's a section where they stop, and there's over the shoulder shots. So that probably is probably one of my favorite sequences of the movie, just because of the look of it and just how it's shot. And like the subjects are in focus, but everything around them is out of focus. Yeah. It's like when you're having a really intimate conversation with someone, and if you're in it, like they're the focus, everything else around. And I appreciate how the scene reflects that. Can you talk me through what were the conversations with your DP like to achieve a shot like that? And how much of that was planned prior to the day of, and how much of it came about on the day of? Like, what was that like?
Part of it was planned, part of it was unplanned, as usual.
Yeah, right.
And I'll give you another example of a scene that was like absolutely fantastic. We were so lucky, but I'm going to start with this one.
Yeah, okay.
First of all, when we did outside the scenes, we had a lot of rainy days. Yes. It was late March, and in Montreal in late March, there's still a bit snow left on the ground, but it's mostly rain that you're going to get. And because the temperature is around like 40, 45 degrees. Sure. Just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
So it was cold, you know, for cast and crew to spend hours and hours like this. So what happened is, the bubble that you're talking about, this is exactly what we wanted. But originally, had it been sunny, there would have been no umbrella.
Right, yeah. Right.
So it looked better because of the fact that it was raining on that day.
Yeah.
But the fantastic, I would call it, accident that we got while shooting. You probably noticed that at some point in the woods, in the park, there's an ice storm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Okay, this we didn't create it with some machine or anything. I didn't have, you know, we don't have the means to create these things. It was supposed to be shot, you know, on any kind of day, rain, snow, sunny, who cares? But then the day before, it was nice and sunny and 60 degrees. We all had lunch outside. But we checked the weather forecast, and it was early April. And the weather forecast called for an ice storm.
oh
So
wow.
like, okay, how do we prepare for this? So
That, yeah.
obviously we all have equipment, we have a tent, we have everything. The actors were in trailers, and although they were very close to the set, they could have walked, you know, it was like a 2-3 minute walk.
Oh,
No,
wow.
we parked the trailers, and there was a driver who was picking them up
Oh wow.
for a 2-minute walk
Yeah.
because it was too messy. So what happened is that although people were complaining and I was complaining, I said, guys, this is fantastic. This is a dramatic scene, and we have pellets
Yeah.
falling,
It's like, right.
like the close-up shot on Kim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pellets falling. And you see the trees. It was beautiful, you
Yeah.
know, like the white.
Yeah. 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 Lovely.
It was, I don't know if you, being a Californian, I don't know if you've ever seen an ice storm or if you knew what an ice storm was, but you must have figured out there was something. It wasn't just rain.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was like, yeah, that's the one thing, right? You because you're absolutely right. Like in California, the only place you probably get something similar maybe is up in Lake Tahoe when it's. So I've been up there when it's snowing, and also like
Yeah, Lake Tahoe. Yeah.
yeah, Colorado Springs had one. You know, there's areas where you get oh, so it's like snowy, like some ice, and like which you don't, you know, because you don't get that normally here in California.
And ice storms usually happen once in a blue moon. And the day before it's sunny, the day after it's sunny, it's the month of April. The chances of having an ice storm on April 5th, 2023,
Wow,
very, very, very minimal.
wow.
Because you can have like an ice storm, but it'll last like 20 minutes because
Sure.
the minute the temperature goes up or down, it either changes into snow or rain.
Rain, yep.
Then
Yeah.
we had an ice storm for hours.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it allowed us to do all these scenes, especially the scenes when Jeff and his colleague walk up.
Oh yes,
They're soaking wet, and I tell you, we were all complaining on that day. But I said, guys, it'll look great on the screen.
it does, and it really does too. And the fact that you couldn't plan for that, like you couldn't plan for that, like about like, to plan for that to happen, and to have it work, not only work for the look, but also there's something about it that works thematically for like what's happening in the story too. It's like, oh, that's such a like divine like gift from the universe.
Yeah, because it was a dramatic scene. Had
Yeah,
it been just two people jogging and talking, listening to music, I mean, who cares?
right.
But considering the scene, I mean, it gives it a dramatic look. And when you see Tanya coming out of the woods and
Yeah, it's like
splashing into water, she did it on purpose. That was her idea. She was supposed to be hiding in the woods, but she said, no. There's like a little pond, a little puddle over there.
oh, wow.
So I'll just go splash, splash, splash.
Wow, it makes
And then she lived in the actress lived in the area, and she couldn't find a ride back home because the driver was too busy. She was about a mile away from her house. She walked to her house with her with her shoes and everything. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you remember when they had these DVD commentaries,
Dude, yes, I was a fan of it. I love
it's
them.
all kind of stuff that
Yeah, this is like
funny stories that I would tell. Yeah,
it's the best things. It's like
yeah.
it's like the next question I have like around this so this from around like there's such good like nuggets around it. I'm wondering like for locations and stuff like just for the film like when you were in the pre-production process of setting up like how easy was it to secure locations or how difficult it was it to secure locations for like the police station for instance or for like some of the homes some of the really nice homes like the mansions here and like what was the the process of putting all these
Yeah.
people together.
Some locations easy, very easy. Some locations a little bit harder. The nice homes, basically, there's a website in a local website where people just advertise
Sure.
their
Oh,
home for rent for film shoots or TV shoots or commercials, whatever. So that's why we were able to find these nice houses, because we had people who were willing to rent it out for a day or two or three or four. So that's the easy part. The mansion at the end with the birds and the candles and everything,
yeah.
just a weird place
Yeah.
around near Montreal, across the bridge. And the guy advertises it for photo shoots, and that's his home.
Oh,
But that's like one room that he has. He's crazy about lights and plastic flamingos. And I tell you,
yeah. It was a
we saw photos, and my DP is like, man, we got to shoot there.
yeah.
But we got to find a scene that matches this whole thing.
Yes.
And I think it didn't match because it's kind of surreal
Yeah.
what's happening. So, I mean, the cast and crew, when they walked into this house, they were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. So, so that was easy because the guy was open to this. What was harder is that I was looking for a police station. You cannot shoot in police
Yeah. You
station.
want to let you. Yeah. It was like, how
There
do you?
was like a TV show, a local TV show. Perhaps we could have gotten their set
Mhm.
because they were not shooting on those days. But then again, it would have been complicated. And then my artistic director, production designer, he says, look, let's take the production office that we rented out for a couple of months and let's ask them for permission to shoot over there. And we'll recreate some sort of police, a police station.
Yeah.
Maybe not like a wide shots, but at least the interrogation room, the chief's office. And he said, let's dress it up. And he says, I think it'll work.
That's yeah.
So I think it did work. Obviously, it's not like the big police station with people walking around and sirens and everything, but it does the job in terms of like the offices. I think they could look like an interrogation room, with nothing on the wall and the camera at the top, and the chief of police's office. That was complicated because there are people working in that building, and
Yeah.
we had complaints.
Yeah.
Although we were just there for a couple of days, we had complaints. And because we come up with a lot of equipment, a lot of people, we have, craft, for lunch. And
Yeah. Great.
so the landlord wasn't too happy, but look, he had given us permission.
Yeah.
And I said, look, tomorrow we're done. Okay, so can they tough it out? And they did tough it out, and that's it. So that was the real issue. The rest, whenever you shoot outside, you just get permits from the city. The concert hall, there's so many concert halls in Montreal. They rent it out for a day. It's expensive, but they rent it out for a day. We were there for 2 days. The lounge, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
This is a very high-end club in a very, very rich part of Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a flyer. I said, can we shoot a scene? And they charge for half a day. It was like, I think over $1,000, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah. Oh,
but they said, you guys got to be out by noon.
Oh, wow. You had to be.
We came early in the morning. We're out by noon, paid $1,000. Thank you very much.
Get in and out.
But I think it worked well because it's supposed to be a lounge in a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hotel room is a real hotel room. And the outside of the hotel's real hotel. The only thing they said, we don't want the name shown on camera. We didn't. And so it was a real hotel room. So it was done on location. In most cases, we didn't have studios or anything. The only thing that we built from scratch was the police office, the police station offices.
That's one of the things too about like it's such a part of the process. Like it's one of the things I learned really just around filmmaking, around how much of it is. So it's storytelling, but a lot of it is. But even in story, it's problem solving. like even in the storytelling process, you're solving problems to tell the story. And when you're actually sort of shooting and actually on, in the field, you're figuring out how do we make this? Like, how do we make this police station? How do we do this? How much of that, like how easy or difficult it is for you to work with the crew to help you solve those problems? Like, is it like and how much of it, because it's a collaborative, effort, it is, but like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah,
the,
it is. Basically, you work with the assistant director, the DP, the production designer, and the continuity person.
sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's your core. But any technician can throw ideas, lighting technicians, grips, key grips. Yeah, anyone can have ideas, and I'm always willing to listen. The only thing I tell people at the beginning of the shoot, I say, okay, you give me an idea. If I say no, you can try and convince me a second time. But if I say no again, then it's no, and we move on.
Well,
But
right.
usually I would say that I take 90% of their ideas.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they're good. They know their stuff. They know their stuff more than I do. A lighting technician knows his stuff more than I do.
That's one of the, you're right. That's one.
Cameraman knows the camera better than I do.
Yeah.
And so it's all about logistics, and it's a collaborative effort. So although my name is all over the movie as producer, director, writer, whatever, you cannot make a movie by yourself. And I'm not saying this out of false modesty. It is true. It is true. If you try to make it yourself, well, first of all, it's physically almost impossible. But even with a crew of 2 or 3, I don't think you can make a good product unless you're like super talented, which I'm not.
It's one of those things. It's like, well, I think part of the talent, I think that's there. Like if it sounds like you're trusting your team to
Well, I'm
do,
a conductor.
yeah, that's part of the, right. That's the, and there's a, I think there's a real skill and talent in that too, and allowing, being like, look, you guys know what you're good at. I trust you guys to bring, because everyone wants to make a good product too. They want to be a part of something that's good.
Well, their name goes on it.
Yeah, the name's goes on, and she's,
Yeah.
all those people in the credits, like they're all part of the process to make the project, and it's like, this is like, okay, they want it to be just as good as you want it to be too. You're like, this is so your hope is, I think also as a viewer having seen it, it's there. You can see everyone's skill and everyone's talent on display. Firing
Costume designer worked very hard.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Find the right costume for
Yeah.
everything. You should have seen. She had a room full of costumes, carrying this in her truck every day. And oh yeah, that she and her assistants, they worked very, very hard. And the makeup person and the hair person, you're trying to find the right look for Kim, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
And just to tell you, as in the collaborative process, my DP at some point, we were shooting a scene near a lake,
Yeah.
across the street from where Jeff and Kim live. And because I wanted an outdoor shot, it was late March, there was a little bit of snow, there was a little bit of ice on the water. So I thought it was cool, because you have to be careful when you shoot these movies. The weather changes.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have 4 seasons here.
Right.
So I once shot a movie in May. The big problem is that May the 1st, the trees are like dead,
Wow.
but 2 weeks later, it's full of green leaves.
Wow.
So I had scenes where basically we start with green leaves. The scene after, there's no leaves. Then we go back to leaves. And I said, okay, this is done. So I learned my lesson. I said, if we shoot in the window of late March, early April, we know that it's going to be pretty stable. Snow is melting.
Right. Yeah.
So if one day there is snow, one day there's no snow, it's not a big deal, because there is still snow on the ground.
Sure.
So because the story takes place in the span of, I don't know, 1 month, maybe.
Yeah.
The story itself. I would say it's a 1 month thing.
Yeah.
So I had to be careful with this. So it worked. So we had a scene outdoors, and the DP, he was looking at the scene and he said, you know what? He goes, this scene is not going to be in the final cut.
Oh, he just.
I go, yeah, but I want my outdoor shot. He goes, okay, we'll do it. It's your money. But this is redundant. It was between Jeff and Kim having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I'm willing to take my chances. So we had this nice scene across the lake, editing room, cut.
Cut, you knew.
So I called him up and I said, remember that scene, buddy?
But you're right. You
It's,
get
it's on the cutting room floor. And he said, told you.
That's now, was it how did it feel when you had to make that cut? We actually had to make the choice to cut it. Was it hard to cut it, or you just was like, look, it's what's best overall for the story? Was it easy to make that decision to go, all right?
I came up with the frame of mind of being detached.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I
okay,
wouldn't consider the money. I wouldn't consider the time. I wouldn't consider all the sweat and blood that went through it. I was only thinking what's good for the film. That's why I went through it line by line. There
yeah,
were lines that I liked that I had to cut. There were scenes, like I said, the concert scene where they sing, where she sings House of the Rising Sun at the
yeah,
end.
the end, right?
I
Yeah,
had to cut it, but I found a way to at least include the song in the end credits, just to, because you need a song for the end credits. I liked it, and I said, okay, this is one way of salvaging a little bit of it. But I was thinking, although it kind of hurt a little bit, it was not like a bee sting.
yeah,
It
okay,
was
yeah.
more like, oh, okay,
Oh,
let's
right.
forget about it. Let's forget about it.
Let it go.
Years ago, when I was younger, I would have been stubborn and I would have kept those scenes just for the sake of keeping them because, well, I spent money on it.
Yes, right. Like no, right, because
Yeah.
you invested in the time, like no, keep that scene, right? No, it makes perfect sense.
So I hope the actors who had some of their material cut, I hope they're not too disappointed. But look, if you guys are watching this was for the good of the film.
That's
It was not. It's not because I didn't like your performance. It's not because it just I needed to make a tight little movie, and again, I think I did.
I think you did too. So I mean, the last two, I have two last two questions. I'll go ahead and get you out of here. You mentioned earlier there were you had two different endings, and I'm curious, what was the deciding factor that made you go with one ending over the other? Did it feel like, was it like, oh, this is more punchy, we got to hit him with this, or was this more like what felt more exciting, or what was the curious, like when you have a couple endings like
I
that?
think it felt. If I had chosen the other ending, it would have felt a little bit too contrived.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I
I
could say
think that's
more,
perfect.
but I don't want to spoil it.
I know, yeah, yeah.
It would have been a little bit more too contrived. And I obviously asked a lot of people,
Sure.
and I think 9 out of 10 told me you do this ending. Well,
Yeah.
the one that's in the film. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic answer, and I think that's what my gut was like. Oh, this is because it's not it's not something you expect.
And there's one scene that we shot that the DP at the end, he said, let's shoot it in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
Because you might have to choose at the end. Again, he was a visionary because
Yeah.
at the time I wasn't thinking about this ending.
Right.
And he said, let's do it this way and that way, and then you'll have the choice.
Oh, so great.
And I said, why do you think I would change my ending? He goes, you'll see.
That's fantastic.
The guy is smart.
That's the
Shout out to Alexandre Bussière.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. He did fantastic work. Just like the shots, just the framing of the shots, like a lot of and then just like the way the camera moves, like it feels very lyrical. There's a lot of lyrical movements, there's a lot going on just visually. I think yes, he did a fantastic job. And then so lastly, Simon, I'm curious, and again, this may be one of those things I might have been thinking too deeply about the movie. You might not have thought about this, but I'm curious around when you consider some of the music that's in the film, particularly some of Kim's songs in this movie, and what it says about her character. One of the things that came up for me was the notion of sin, and how there's this coming from the understandings of this basic, like, okay, the wages of sin is death, or like, and that could be layers of that. That could be sort of a physical death, could be metaphorical death, like a death of a marriage, that all these different things coming. How much weight does the notion of sin, the concept of sin, hold in the story at all? Like when you think of like sin, everyone has a price to pay in some form in this movie. The people who've like sort of engaged definitively in like sinful, questionable acts. So I wonder how much of that were you thinking about in the process of crafting the story, or were you at all? Did it have anything to do with the process of the story?
Well, I got lucky that I got the 3 songs that I wanted.
Yes, you're right.
Breaking the Law, obviously,
Yeah, that's
as a Kickstarter, it's breaking the law. This
yeah,
is what the movie's about.
yeah.
So I needed that song. The guys from Judas Priest, they agreed. That was fantastic. I really thank, Glenn Tipton, Rob Halford, and KK Downing, who wrote the song, a classic. And then we had the song that she plays at the bar.
Yeah.
Uh, it's called No More Hollywood Endings.
It is good. Yeah.
And then The House of the Rising Sun, if you listen to the lyrics, it's someone who kind of regrets certain things that she's done.
Yeah.
And to me, it's melancholic. And I thought that it would fit at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's perfect. Yeah.
We had our own version done, obviously, of this song, because that song is like 150 years old. And it was done and redone and redone and redone by every band in the world. The most famous version, I think, is from the Animals in the 1960s.
Oh, yeah.
And where they added a fantastic keyboard solo. But that one has copyrights on it.
Sure. Oh, okay.
Had to come up with our own version, which sounded more like the original one from the 19th century.
Wow. That's good. And how easy? I know that's what I said. I'm just curious, like, because I'm curious about the music too. Like, how was that process easy to get? Like, to have the ability to create your own versions of these songs, like to have like an artist to get the recording time and all that stuff to have it reproduced.
Well, what happened is basically I had to have 3 songs done. House of the Rising Sun, there were no problems with rights because it's public domain.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
So no problem.
One of those things.
The other 2, Breaking the Law, you have to work with a rights agent.
Mm-hmm.
Or what they call it, music clearance office or something. That's what they call it, music rights clearance.
Mm-hmm.
So you call up the guy and you say, I want Breaking the Law. The guy does everything for you for a fee. And then you get the contract from the record company, not the record company, but the publisher of the song, because we weren't using the actual song.
Sure.
If you use the actual song, there's another step and it costs a lot more money if you get the original one. But the idea was just to get the okay from the publisher and the guys from Judas Priest, which we did. It takes a few weeks, actually.
Sure.
So you have to prepare in advance. Then the other one, No More Hollywood Endings. I did the same thing. It's a lesser known band, Battle Beasts, but they're still very successful, but it's a lesser known band. It was great. And it just so happened that the musician who rearranged the songs, he knows people from Battle Beasts.
Oh, wow. Oh.
He was touring with them, actually.
Wow.
Well, because the guy who did the song, he's the keyboard player for a band called Camelot. It's an American band.
Okay.
And the guy's German, but Camelot is an American band. And I like them. And at some point, I was looking for musicians. And I said, do I take local guys or something? And I said, okay. And then at some point, I came across a site where musicians offer their services for anything, jingles, commercials, score, or whatever you want. And I saw the guy, and he was on the site. I said, hey, that's the keyboard player from Camelot.
Oh.
And I thought it was fantastic. So I contacted him. I told him I sent him the script. I said, can you do the score? And can you do the songs? Well, actually, I started with the songs only.
Yeah.
I said, I need 3 songs. So he recruited a singer that he knew, because Kim is not really singing.
Right. Yeah.
It's not really singing. And so he recruited someone, and he did most of the guitar and the drums and everything. But on stage, what you see, obviously Kim is lip syncing, but the musicians that I hired to play with Kim, the band, let's call it the cover band,
Yeah.
They actually learned the songs. They are real musicians.
Wow.
So any person watching who knows the guitar and the bass will see that they are actually playing Breaking the Law.
Wow. That's
They're not just going wing, 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 like
right. They're actually, yeah, like you see so
yeah.
right.
They
This
are real
felt real.
musicians
Yeah.
because I want to be as realistic as possible. I could have hired extras who could have gone bing, 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 bing. But
Yeah.
then, some people notice
You can
these
catch it. No, you definitely can tell.
they are playing for real, but they were not the actual musicians who recorded the song. But it doesn't matter. So anyway, then I like what he did, and I said, "Hey, you want to do the score for this movie? Do you have some time off? In between your
Yeah.
tours and stuff?" And he said, "Yeah, I have a couple of months, and in between, touring and stuff. Let's do it."
Wow. That's it works
So
out.
he sent me songs, and I gave him carte blanche
Yeah.
to put music where he thought it should fit.
Sure. Yeah. Mhm.
And I took all of it, maybe except one song, and then I got extra songs, for here and there, for because it matched this or it matched that, but I would say 90% of the score that you hear is from Oliver.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, there it is. Hopefully, this interests you in the movie, and you're open to experiencing something different. Because I think it's worth your time. It's worth a look. For anybody who's a film head, it's worth a look. Just for the mere fact that this is something that was produced and put together, and it looks like it's lovingly crafted, and you can see that on screen. I hope it's worth a look. I think it's worth a look, and I hope you consider, if you can come across Charlie Tango on the VODs, definitely do that, because yes, it was a good film. Special thanks to Karen Oberman over at KOPR for pulling strings to put the interview together and allow me the opportunity to watch the film. It was great. I hope for more conversations to be as interesting and just and rich as the one I had with Mr. Boisvert. And so, if you've watched the whole thing, I know it was a long one. Thank you for taking the time, and stay tuned. More videos coming up pretty soon. Have a good day, and see you in the next video.